BSc Brokers Forum, and today we have a seminar on GST. Today's speaker for the event is Mr. Abhishek Rastogi. He is a partner in Khaitan & Company. Sir has a qualification of LLB Law Center from Delhi University. He is a chartered accountant in 2000 from 2004 batch and a BCom honors from Shriram College of Commerce, Delhi University 2000 year. Apart from this, Abhishek is a partner in Indirect Tax Practice Group in the Mumbai office. Prior to joining Khaitan & Company, he was director at PwC Mumbai, specializing in indirect tax. He has argued some of the key indirect tax matters in Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Mumbai tribunals and has also been involved in writ petitions before various high courts. He has represented various prestigious matters like multinational pharmaceutical company in relation to customs classification dispute before Chennai tribunal that redemption fine cannot be imposed on goods and goods which are not available for confiscation. An international asset management company in relation to representation before the tribunal on service tax implications on provisional entries in case of associated entrepreneurs. An Indian BPO foreign bank in relation to 15 appeals before the Mumbai tribunal for eligibility of credit and computation of refund benefit and to obtain condonation of 732 days delay in interest of justice. Then Convergence India in relation to a landmark service tax refund matter at Delhi tribunal. He has also represented Fidelity Investments Limited in relation to providing before the Mumbai tribunal that the services were delivered and used outside of India. Then GE India Exports in relation to an issue before the Hyderabad tribunal that credit cannot exceed be denied, that invoices are not in the name of registered premises. So these are some of the important matters where he has represented. Apart from this, he has been actively involved in publication space and authored the following books: Professional Guides to Service Tax 7th edition, India Needs GST 2nd edition, Pocket Guide to Service Tax 5th edition, Datar's Guide to Central Tax 7th edition, Handbook on Foreign Trade Policy. So these are some of the few things which I would like to mention from his profile. It's quite long and lengthy. We are very happy to have you here, sir. Now I would request Mr. Abhishek and Ms. Neha, who is an advocate and helps BSc Brokers Forum to bring various laws on our platform, to please come on the dais. And along with that, our Harin Mehta, sir, Joint Secretary of BSc Brokers Forum. Please, if you can come on the dais. I would request Sri Hari to give a token of memento from BSc Brokers Forum. Thank you, sir. Before taking now too much of your time, I would request Abhishek sir to carry out his presentation.
Good evening, friends. Before I start on the presentation, I think what we should understand and realize is this GST reform will fundamentally change the way we do business, and at the same time it will impact each one of us. And when I say it will impact each one of us, is definitely because there will be changes not only in the way the businesses are conducted, but also the tax rates. And I think there will be a lot of changes as far as the interpretation of law is concerned. Few things will become very, very simple to understand, because we know for a fact that what has happened to transactions wherein both the VAT authorities and the service tax authorities were asking for taxes on the same supplies, and there were transactions which were deemed to be both goods and services. Now, a lot of such issues will of course be resolved, but I think today as we speak, and especially what is very relevant in your case is what happens to a lot of complicated things such as securities. So we know for a fact that securities, as far as the GST law is concerned, are treated neither as goods nor as services. So which means what? So of course securities will be out from the GST regime to a very large extent, it appears. But what happens to services when these are in the form of intermediary services? And so far, if we see the service tax provisions, there were specific provisions for intermediaries. But what happens under the GST regime? And it is good to learn that intermediaries have been given special treatment, securities have been given special treatment, and when we see the definition of intermediaries in the GST law, it says facilitation of supplies of goods or services or securities. So of course, which means that the government has applied a lot of mind on a lot of these transactions, and securities is one example. But if we see a lot of transactions with respect to banks, if we see a lot of transactions with respect to actionable claims, if we see a lot of transactions with respect to sale of immovable property, which could be land and building. So there have been special treatment which have been given to a lot of things. If we see the schedule to the CGST bill, it provides a lot of these clarifications by way of explicitly including them in the schedule. So what is goods, what is services, what will fall under services, there will be a lot of clarity. So about 5-6 months back, when I was prepared, so after my second edition of GST, so I started writing on GST way back in 2008 and 9, thinking that it will come in 2010. And I was probably the first author, and Taxman had published that book in 2008. And nobody had thought that time that it will take almost a decade for, or maybe 7-8 years more for GST to be implemented, and everybody was thinking 2010. So I was very young that time, and I wrote that book. And of course, then in 2012, when nothing on GST was moving, the publisher started calling and said that boss, GST तो आ नहीं रहा है, ये तो आएगा नहीं, लगता नहीं है इस देश में आएगा, आप negative list पर ही लिख दीजिए, that will be a good option. So wrote on that, but I think from there it started. The entire discussion on GST started about a decade back, and now here we are in this year when we will fortunately see this coming. The important point which I want to share with you was a lot of interaction which happened with the North Block, and I had a couple of discussions with Mr. Jetty. And the first discussion which I had when I went to him to show my book, and he had spent a lot of time on reviewing that book. The last edition which has come now this week is the version which he has gone through page by page. So my question to him was that whenever I am speaking in such forums, what is the message which I should give to industry? And he was very clear, and he did not even pause for a while to say that you just have to tell that a methodical business and a businessman who is honest will 100% benefit out of this regime. And I completely agree with that, because there are a lot of concepts which have been introduced. I would not go into details of that, but of course, concepts like matching concept for availment of credit. When the vendor does not pay and you avail the credit, you may have to reverse that. So because of that, a lot of contracts like indemnity contracts, etc. will come into force now. A lot of these things will have to be seen, but of course, the intent is that the tax compliance should improve, the tax base should expand, and at the same time, the tax rate should come down. Now, the last part of it is very critical, because it impacts everybody sitting here. It impacts me, it impacts you, it impacts me on my business, it impacts me in my daily life. So what happens to the tax rate? So as we speak, there is less certainty on the tax rate, because the committee is still working on finalizing this rate. But how will it happen? What will actually happen? So the intention is that, and of course 2019 elections are close, but more importantly, the intention is that the tax rates should come down, and at the same time the benefit should go to the ultimate consumer of both goods and services. So how will the tax rate come down? The tax rate will come down because what will happen is GST provides an opportunity of seamless credit. And the only objective of seamless credit is that I should get all the credits in the chain, which encourages me to pay tax on the output side and do not do transactions in cash. And there was a lot of discussion about demonetization. And a lot of these news channels have been inviting me for the last 5-6 months. And when this demonetization happened, that very next day, one of the news channels asked me that whether this is the right move of the government. And I said that, only time will tell, but I think it is a right move, because today as we speak, as we stand here, the industry knows for a fact that there is a complete parallel economy which runs. Now, at the end of 31st of March, the indirect tax collections have gone up by about 18%. Excise duty collection has gone up by 33%, service tax on 22%, and direct tax by 14%. So that's the additional revenue as compared to the last year which has come. So is it purely because of demonetization, or is it because of the growing economy? The answer is, to a very large extent, it is because of the demonetization as well. So I think GST will be a regime which would require and force each one of us to be methodical in business, to plan our businesses in a way that there are no tax leakages, and at the same time we do tax compliances on time, and it will be forced onto each one of us in some way or the other. Now what I will do is, in this presentation, of course, I would not talk too much around GST, because you can do a lot of Google, you can see YouTube videos, and you can get a lot of information. But I think what I will do is, I will talk more about few concepts, why these are relevant, especially for you, and then I will address few of these issues which are very relevant for your sector. So of course, I would want to touch on the concept of GST is a destination-based consumption tax. And I don't want to speak theoretically here, but I want to raise this issue so as to see that what has come for our sector, is this principle straightly applicable there, or are we deviating from the main principle? Now, what the principle says? The principle is simple, that the benefit of tax should go to the state where the goods or services are ultimately consumed. So, for instance, if a manufacturer is situated in Maharashtra and the goods are ultimately used or consumed by someone in Delhi, the tax benefit on that value addition should go to each of the state. So if the manufacturing has happened in Maharashtra, of course the person who's manufacturing will take the credit of all the taxes paid and will do an interstate transaction on which IGST will be levied. But when the goods are ultimately sold in Delhi, there will be CGST and SGST of Delhi. So that appropriate tax on the value addition or that margin goes to the Delhi government as well. Now, let's come to the export provisions. So the principle remains the same, and the benefit or the taxability will again be determined by the destination-based system. Now, what happens in case of export, when these services are exported, exports will remain zero rated, which means that whenever these exports are happening, the exporter will get all the benefits of the input taxes. And because the place of provision is outside of India, there is no tax on the output side. Now let's link this principle to our situation with respect to the transactions which I do for FIIs, etc. Now what happens in that case is that I would squarely be covered by the definition of intermediary, because intermediary has been defined as any broker or agent or any other person who facilitates the buying or selling of goods or services or securities. Now, why the word security has been added there is for a reason, because securities is neither goods nor services. It has been excluded from both goods and services by the Act, and hence where intermediary provides services with respect to these securities is covered in the definition of security. The billion-dollar question now which arises is that for the transactions, when this intermediary renders services to an FII who is situated, let's say, in the US market. As per the destination-based principle, the recipient is outside of India. Merely bringing the intermediary and the place of provision of that service with respect to the location of the service provider, which could be a broker or an intermediary, we will call it in a general term, is actually wrong. And hence I feel that while most of these principles are very important for this entire fundamentals of GST, there are some exceptions which have been carved out. Similarly, if you see online procurement of these services, etc., the principle may not be fair. Now, the question which arises is that for these instances, because the entire fundamental of GST is based on certain principles, today most of these banks are asking for centralized registration. And there was a big debate whether banks should be given, whether SBI and HDFC, who have branches, thousands and thousands of branches, should they be given an option of centralized registration? And they tried quite a lot. But till the very end, it was decided that, this benefit should not be given to them, because tomorrow insurance will come, then telecom will come, then someone else will come, then brokers will come, then taxi operators will come if they have presence in more than one state. But then what happened? When the final version of the bill came out, there was a power which was given that in few cases the option of centralized registration may be decided and may be given. Now, if you deviate from those principles, and I am coming back to the intermediary position, is on one side we are saying that there has to be a uniform policy, there has to be a principle, and that principle is so important. How come we are deviating from that principle? Some sectors have made a lot of representations. I don't know the status for the broking community, whether there are appropriate representations which are on or not. But this principle has completely been ignored as far as the intermediaries are concerned. So the question now arises is, what is the right time to put your voice to the North Block? Is it today, or is it after 18th of May when the council is meeting for the next time and most probably the rates and other things will be finalized? Or it is after 1st of July? So that is to be decided by us only. Now, I will not spend too much of time on tax leakages, etc. The system will take care of that. The tax cascading effect goes off. But why I want to talk about the tax cascading effect is, there are a couple of sectors who have not been given a due correct treatment, or maybe who have been given a stepmotherly treatment. Now, out of those sectors, few of the sectors will be very strong to represent and get the benefit, but few of the sectors may not get that benefit, and I will give you two examples. The first example is with respect to electricity. Now we know for a fact that electricity duty is a state subject. Entry 53 in the state list has been kept, which means electricity will be subjected to the state duty even under the GST regime. Now what will happen to the GST rate on electricity? Everybody knows that electricity, for that matter, would be at an exempted rate, if not zero rated. If that exemption goes to electricity, as far as the GST is concerned, it will be safe. And because of the entry 53 in the state list, electricity duty will continue to be imposed on electricity. Now let's compare it with securities. Now we know for a fact that security transaction tax will continue under the GST regime, the way electricity duty will be continuing. But what will happen to the brokerage services under the GST regime? Are we thinking or expecting an exemption? The answer may be no. So, will the tax rate be 12% or will the tax rate be 18%? And I feel that both the rates, 18% for sure, will be very high. Because today as we speak, even if we assume that service tax is there on a lot of these transactions, while there have been disputes on a lot of intermediary services when it comes to the receivers outside of India, today the tax rate is 15%. And if the tax rate goes to 18%, it will be completely unfair. It will be completely unfair for trade. It will be completely unfair even for the investors, because ultimately the cost goes to the investor. And people who are trading on a daily basis or on a very regular basis, the cost will suddenly go up. And especially when it's not a B2B transaction where the tax charged by you guys will not be a credit available to him, it will be a cost. So the question again arises is that, should I be taxed at 18%? Should I be taxed at 12%? Or can I ask for some exemption? Or asking for exemption will be too much and I will lose a lot of my credits also. Can 5% be considered for few of these services? So I think again, for the rate, for sure, the representation should be filed. Aggressively, some sectors are following up with the government officials. At the same time, there are few sectors which have just not done any follow-up. So I think time for us today now is to determine those 3-4 areas and get the best benefit out of this change. So this is just a roadmap of how the things have happened over the past few months or years and how will it look. So I will again not spend time on this. Now this is interesting because when we see taxes subsumed, there are a lot of taxes which get subsumed. So for example, what is very relevant for your sector is certainly service tax. That gets the benefit, and all of these taxes which are in the blue arrow down are getting subsumed. But what remains is stamp duty. What remains is excise duty on petroleum products, taxes on electricity we spoke, and of course some taxes on vehicles, etc. So while there will be certain things which will be subsumed, and for sure service tax will be, and GST will take the form of that tax, there are a lot of challenges which will be around in terms of the tax rates, because at what rate I get taxed will determine make or break. Now again, if we see the legislative scheme, the Constitution of India now has given the power to both the state and the federal government to impose taxes on both goods and services, because of which the Constitution change happened. And legislative scheme specifically talks about both the intrastate supplies and the interstate supplies. Now why is that very relevant in case of your transactions is that you may have multiple locations from where these services are happening. So if these are specifically happening only from one state and the service provider is only in one state, the customer may be scattered all throughout the country, it will not have a lot of relevance. And because the place of provision would be where the location of the service provider is. So to that extent, as far as the compliances or as far as the registrations or the tax payments are concerned, more or less it looks like it will be a reasonable thing for you, because the place of provision is dependent on where the location of the service provider is. Now we spoke about the tax rates, and I think that's the most important thing. And if we see the current rate structure, there are different rates for different supplies, goods and services. But what is very relevant under the GST structure is that there will be a multiple rate system, and what we are envisaging is 0%, 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%. Of course, there will be sin goods which will be taxable at a much higher rate because of applicability of cesses. There is a separate bill or act with respect to these cesses, which is nothing but to compensate states for the losses which they would incur, if at all. and these cesses will be applicable on some tobacco products, luxury cars, and so on and so forth. Now, what is very relevant for us is, again, the applicability of rate to me. Now, see, understand that what is basically happening, and not only for your services, but for any service. The challenge today is that I am between 12 and 18%. Now, if majority of the services, or the standard rate for services is 15%, and the government in a lot of their announcements have said that if the rate is, let's say, 14%, it will come down to 12%, and when we say 14%, it is the effective rate of tax, which means excise duty plus VAT on goods. But what happens to services? Because services are at 15%, and the standard rate for services in most of the cases, except where there are those abatements in 12 situations, the service tax rate is 15%. Now, will all the services go to 12%? Or will all of these 15% services will go to 18%? That's a tough call which the council has to take. But what will happen is, those sectors which are aggressively representing may get that benefit. And there will be certain sectors which would, of course, go from 15% to 18%. Now, that's one problem, that you go from 15% to 18%. That increases the tax cost. The other part of the problem is that if you go from 15% to 12%, now what happens? If you go from 15% to 12%, which means that the tax rate has come down, first. Secondly, the credit pool under the GST regime certainly will increase for any assessment. Now, if the tax rate comes down and the credit pool increases, the problem is not that I get the benefit. The problem is that I have to pass the benefit. And anti-profiteering provisions clearly says that when your entire tax throughput, which is nothing but the taxes which you paid on inputs and the taxes which you paid on output, reduces, then the benefit of that should flow to the customer. Now, how would you calculate that? So one is, of course, if the base of the commission is determined based on some percentage, we arrive onto that percentage by calculating the trade which happened. And let's say you apply 1% on 100 rupees, 1 rupee is the commission. You would charge 12% or 15% or 18% as the case may be. The effective cost to the consumer will come down if that base remains the same. So, ideally in most of the cases, there should not be a problem unless and until service providers, brokers, etc. keep on charging 1 plus 15% of that 1 and do a backward calculation if the rate is 12%. Now, assuming that the base is kept at 1 rupee and of the commission, and you charge, instead of 15, you charge 12%, so the final invoice is 1.12. Now, the problem may come. And what the problem may come is, any of the customer may go to the authorities and say that this reduction of 3 paisa has happened correctly because of the reduction in the rate. But what happens to the excess credit pool which this service provider has got? And that's the challenge. Because as we speak, we do not have an answer whether people will fight for that, whether people will not fight for that, what the contract says, what are the tax clauses, how are the indemnities worded, what happens in case the vendor charges the tax but does not pay, will there be an indemnity clause in the contract, will that indemnity clause be appropriate for a service receiver or a procurer to go to the court and tell him that please indemnify me because of your fault, I have suffered not only the credit reversal but also the interest. So all those things will come up in the GST regime. It will be very important for us to understand our business, how it has happened today, what are the credits which are going in the pool today, which are creditable today, how am I computing my revenue per transaction, am I charging a fixed revenue, or am I charging it on a percentage? Is there a mechanism by which I can justify that what I have charged in the past and what I charge in the future will remain the same? Am I giving the due benefit to the customer? Is it appropriate for me to pass on that benefit as of now, because I do not know about the compliance cost, will they go up? I don't know about the credits, whether they will be denied under the new regime. So all those questions I think would depend on a case-to-case basis, but yes, it is the time for me to plan myself. And of course, very rightly, the endeavor of the government is very clear that there should not be any tax leakages. People should comply, people should pay, and the tax which is coming to the exchequer should be used appropriately in such a way so that the tax base expands and the rate ultimately comes down. Now, key concepts, again, I would not cover all these concepts, but I will cover the concept which is very relevant for you, and that is again place of supply. And we spoke about that destination-based rules. Now, I would again reiterate that in case these representations have not been made, I think these representations should be made right now. In any case, there will be a lot of challenges with respect to whether these provisions are ultra-wise. That will all happen. But the question is that if that happens 3 years later from now, and the tax is charged, collected and paid, there will be a lot of situations wherein the cost of rendering these services will increase, but the decision of the court comes later. So I think the best way is to get the representation. If that representation is not in our favor, then of course there is a recourse by going to the court, either challenging the constitutional validity or proving that these provisions are ultra-wise. And last but not the least, the most important weapon wherever there is an ambiguity is the advance ruling. And why I say that is that the role of the advance ruling has completely been expanded under the GST regime. As we speak today, under the current regime, there is only one advance ruling authority, and the applicant has a lot of restrictions because only particular type of applicant can opt for advance ruling. Now what happens under the GST regime is that these advance ruling authorities will be present in all of the states, and any assessee who has any ambiguity with respect to the taxability, and there are other situations also, can opt for advance ruling. So it is very important for us to determine those issues wherever there is confusion, because even as lawyers or even as consultants, there may not be answers for everything. And honestly, nobody wants to get into litigation. When it comes to our personal taxes, we say that let's just pay the tax and forget it. But when it comes to client, the approach, can the approach be the same? Or when the tax has to be charged to the customer, can the approach be the same? Can we make our services more costlier? So a lot of these questions will come up in the next couple of months. So the best way, fortunately, under the GST regime is that there is an option of advance ruling. And this weapon should be used very often, especially in the initial years, initial months. And of course, the related point is with respect to the transitional provisions. Now we know for a fact that there are transitional provisions, and a lot of my credits which are eligible in the current regime becomes the credit in the GST regime. But for that I have to comply, I have to file my returns, I have to disclose those credits in the returns, and thereafter I will be able to claim that benefit as an opening balance under the GST regime. So from that perspective, it is very important for me that in this transitional period, I take all due precautions, whether it is migration, whether it is filing of returns, whether it is capturing my credits, and so on and so forth. So this is, I think, the thought which I would want to leave from this slide is that are the rules against the principle, and how do we address that? There are certain key changes in this bill as compared to the draft. Again, I think anti-profiteering is very relevant. We've spoken procurement from some unregistered dealers. This is the provision which has come in. So any procurement which would happen from an unregistered dealer, the person who's procuring that will have to pay under the reverse charge. Then again, all other things are like normal, which are applicable for all sectors. Now, of course, what we have done is we have analyzed few impacts, and we've spoken quite a bit about days of supply in case of FIIs and FPIs. Here, I think under the GST, the GST is payable on the basis of the location of intermediary, which I think is not a correct provision per se, because the benefit goes off, and a lot of these export transactions, which I feel the receiver is outside of India and should get the benefit of zero rated, would not be available. What happens in case of tax on charges recovered from customers, present regime, and any taxes, duties, cesses, etc. Now this is again a very important and interesting provision. Now what happened under the service tax regime is that any cesses, for example security transaction tax or any cesses, etc., there was no tax on tax with respect to these cesses and levies. Now what has happened under the GST regime, that there will be a common base, but this exclusion is only with respect to the taxes which have been mentioned in the Act. So there will be no tax on CGST, SGST, IGST, UTGST. But what happens to the cesses which are paid, STT which is paid, and so on and so forth? The valuation provisions basically say that the tax has to be imposed on the value plus the cesses and these levies. So to that extent, I think clearly there is a tax cascading, there is a tax on tax. This is the change which has come in this CGST bill. So I think that is another area which needs to be highlighted, and somebody will have to take that initiative to tell to the tax authorities that this is completely wrong. Now, taxability of securities, of course, we have spoken. Securities have been given special treatment. Securities have been treated neither as goods nor as services, but a special treatment has been given. The definition of intermediary now covers both goods or services or securities. So to that extent, it is good that trading per se of security is out of the GST regime, because otherwise, as per the GST provisions, because the definition of supply is so wide, any sale, transfer, exchange, barter, license, etc., everything gets covered. So from that perspective, exchange of securities is out of the GST regime. But what happens onto the brokerage, etc., definitely there will be GST on that. But from the perspective of the exchange or the trade of securities per se, it is out. So that's a welcome step. Increasing credit pool, definitely there will be a lot of credit which will be now available, because a lot of these taxes will subsume and there will be only one tax. We've been talking one tax, one nation, and so on and so forth. So for sure, the credit pool will increase, which means that even if these services are taxed at whatever rate, we will have a larger credit pool, and hence the total cash impact on the business would be less. To that extent, there will be benefit, and that's why there is a thumbs up. The only related point is that the anti-profiteering provision kicks in when the credit pool increases as well. So we have to be mindful there as well. Fungibility of credits and all is all adjustable, so that's good. Rate again is a question mark. What happens and where it gets taxed, on what rate it gets taxed. This slide, I really love this slide, because whenever there is a tax big reform or any change, a lot of people talk about the tax clauses, including change in the law clause within option to restructure. And I think not only with respect to the tax clause, but I think indemnity, to me, I think will be of lot of relevance. And I have given those instances when these indemnities would be applicable. So I think with respect to that indemnity clause, we'll have to be very sure that what are we talking, especially when we are procuring these goods and services from the vendors. But let's understand that this indemnity kicks in on both the sides. So when I am procuring goods and services, there would be an indemnity clause, and I would ensure that any loss which is faced by me because of the error of the vendor, I get that recovered. But I may have certain B2B transactions as well, and my customer may tomorrow ask for an indemnity as well. So we'll have to be careful, because indemnity works both ways, both sides on both the transactions. So it has to be, very carefully drafted and worded in two situations. And I think the classic example is the fourth bullet of this point, which talks about a place of supply wrongly mentioned. Now, we know for a fact now that the place of supply will be determined in most of your cases by the location of the service provider. But now, if the place of provision is wrongly mentioned, let's say in the purchase invoice for which you have taken the credit, and the tax authorities come later and tell you that this is the wrong credit which you have taken. So, for instance, if it was an interstate transaction, but the tax which is being charged is CGST plus SGST, you would have taken the CGST credit to the federal government pool, which is right. But what happens to the SGST that is being wrongly availed? So tomorrow, if you're located in Maharashtra, the Maharashtra authorities may come and say that that's the wrong credit as far as the state GST is concerned. And what happens in that case when we know for a fact that the vendor has charged wrong tax? And that's where this indemnity clause has to be appropriately worded, and it has to cover your business situations in such a customized way so that it does not become a lengthy two-pager indemnity clause, but it covers those situations. Arbitration clauses again will be very relevant, because there will be a lot of B2B transactions. It would not be feasible to go to court a lot of times, and I think arbitration and advance ruling, both of these will be the name of the game under the GST regime, because a lot of these issues will arise, a lot of parties will have differences of opinion. So I think those will have to be appropriately drafted as well. Now, anti-profiteering we have spoken. Payment milestones I think will not be very relevant for your case. Exclusion of central non-GST taxes, we know for a fact entry 90 of the union list taxes other than stamp duties on transactions, stock exchanges and future markets, these prevail, so STT would remain there. That is a hard fact, but that's the reality. And of course ownership, transfer of ownership title clauses, etc. So I think as far as the immediate to-do is concerned, how I would want to sum up for your sector, and of course happy to address a lot of questions which you may have. Of course, I think GST rate, because for a fact it's very sure that the rate is still under discussion. The rates have not been finalized, and my expectation is that the government will not announce the rates too soon. I think it will be only towards the June end when these rates will be announced, because the moment you announce the rates, few sectors will be very happy and other sectors will be completely unhappy. So I think from that perspective, the representation or the work or the number crunching or the impact on the sector has to go today. So we all know for a fact that this sector has a lot of in it, because a lot of investors and the money is circulated, a lot of investors depend on this sector, and if the cost of the service increases significantly, then it would be a big hardship not only for the businesses but also for the investors. So if that can go in terms of numbers to the North Block right now, I think we can leverage out of that. Highlight that provisions related to intermediaries. Of course, I am of a firm believer that the problem of intermediary should have been dealt in a very different way. All these services which these intermediaries are entering to people located outside India should have been zero rated. If we see the provisions of even BEPS, they suggest the destination concept, and based on these international concepts which are now prevailing, and the fundamental principles on which I want to base GST, I think the benefit should have gone. I don't know whether people have appropriately thought about it or not, or has there been enough of knocking at the door because of for this provision. That's point number 2. I think the third point is identify the areas of concern and examine the possibility of advanced ruling. Of course, we have mentioned that advanced ruling will play a very important role. It will be better to have these rulings right at the inception and not at the time of litigation when these tax authorities are coming. Believe me, the interest cost will be too high, that is one. Secondly, even if the advanced ruling authorities pass a ruling which is not in your favor, you always have an option to go to the High Court against that ruling. So while it will be binding only on that SSC, but it does not take away the right to go to the High Court. So that has to be kept in mind. That's a fine point. And the last point, of course, is prepare separately for transition to minimize potential costs and aim for greater benefit. So that's what it is as far as the presentation is concerned. But we can have an interactive session for whatever time we have now. I think we have about half an hour. Happy to address any specific questions, any specific queries which you have.
As a BSc Brokers Forum, we have sent a representation, but I don't think so that has gone to proper ears, first of all. Secondly, many of
Sorry,
us...
you saying that you have filed a representation?
Not filed, we have given the representation.
Sorry?
We have given the representation of 12%, but we assume that that would be 18% to the brokers.
See, so I think it's very relevant for us to follow. And why I say that is, you go to North Block any day when the Parliament is not in session, and you would not believe, and the best part is that Mr. JD is giving time. You know, he is giving time and opportunity to everybody to present. You would not believe the banking sector got a chance to make a presentation. So they were given 10 minutes, but they got a chance to speak before the GST Council. That's a separate point that half of the states told that nothing doing, we can't carve out an exception for you, but that opportunity was given. Now the good part is that the government is very active and a lot of rationale has to go in. So see, today you cannot go and tell the North Block that you should be exempted. Can you say that? You cannot say that.
We were the first to be service taxed.
Sorry?
In the industry specific, we were the first in any industry to be service taxed.
To be serviced, right? Now, for sure, you cannot ask for something which is completely out of the way. And I'm not even suggesting you that. But what you can always ask is based on some rationale. And that rationale has to, so it's basically either I convince you or you convince me. It's that situation. Now, why I say that you have a very fair chance of getting a reduced rate is because today the way electricity duty is there because of entry 53 not being deleted from the state list, we have STT. Now for every transaction which is happening, there is an element of tax which is going to the federal government. Now that logic has to come with the trade number and the collection of STT. Now if we do that and tell them that, boss, listen, I am already at 15%, do not leave me 18%, even 12% is higher. So, you know, whenever these, there is an art of negotiation. And FM will give you only 3 minutes, huh? He will give you only 2 minutes. But you have to say that, well, this is what it is, this is what it is, this is my half a pager, I should be at 5%. So the art of negotiation is you have to fight for 5% so that you get 12%. I hope it is not recorded and seen by you. But that's the way, see basic, but you have to go with all logic, numbers, etc. And with very little, so it's just when you are arguing in a court, you just have to be very good in your first 2 minutes. If you're good and your logic goes into that 2 minutes, the judge will give you 2 hours after that. So I think we can strategize that, think if there is a way out to do that.
So I believe that in GST there is a minimum threshold of 20 lakhs to be get registered or being transferred from service tax to the GST. Many of the brokers who have more than 10 lakhs of income, small ones, and their income is they are less than 28 lakhs. So should they migrate or not?
I think the answer is they should get registered. And I will give you the logic. See, why they should get registered is, one, they will have a lot of credits. That is first. Secondly, why they should register is because in any case, when the transaction is B2B, the tax cost will not come down. What will happen in that case is the person who is procuring the services from an unregistered person will have to comply. That's the second answer. The third point is that the customer would not want to go to an unregistered person. Because they will say that my compliance is getting increased because of going to the unregistered. Let me go to someone who is registered, let him charge tax, in any case it is a pass-through for me. So those are 3 logic why he should get registered. But of course, if his transactions are only with individuals or nothing to do with the registered persons who are unregistered, then of course the answer is different. Then he should not.
Another thing is, as a broker, when I am collecting GST, when I am getting some services like I am buying a TV or something like that, like electricity bill, will I get a setup from them directly?
So the credit rules specifically talks about certain exclusions, and there is no restriction on the capital goods or the goods. So TV, etc., I'll get. There are certain restrictions like if you take those spa services, gym services,
It is completely exceptional.
rent-a-cab services, all those are excluded, but rent-a-cab, again, for a rent-a-cab service operator is eligible. Construction for a subcontractor who would have subcontracted is eligible. So a couple of these services, when you are acting in the capacity of the main contractor and you are subcontracting a part of it, it is eligible. But there are few clear exceptions which have been laid down where the credit is not available. But like for example, rent, what happens? Is it available? Yes, the answer is. For all these IT, services, IT equipment, telephone apparatus, etc., telephone bills, all this is available. So those will be, I think, the chunk of rent, I think, those will be the majority of the procurements which I would do. So all that is available.
I believe that 31st of March was the deadline for migration.
I think that date has been extended. Plus, in fact, I received a call from the Chief Commissioner Service Tax, Ayusha Patnaik. In fact, he mentioned that we should tell the assessees who are registered with service tax authorities that it takes only 7 minutes for this migration. So they should come only with some relevant document, and even the government authorities are working on weekends. They are ensuring that this migration happens in 7 minutes. This is what he told me. We are holding one GST event where Chief Commissioner is coming, and Mr. Arun Goyal, who is the Additional Secretary in the GST Council, he is coming. 2 speakers external, and I will be the speaker. So, few people from your body can come and attend that, and maybe ask questions straight from them. We'll do that.
Is it possible to migrate in all state or in a single state where central registration is taken?
Where all do you have presence? Which states?
In Maharashtra. Or our more than 100 branches situated all over India.
No, so you have branches all over India, right?
Yeah.
In different states.
Yeah,
So every state will have to separately register.
separately.
But so if you have 10 branches in Maharashtra, all those 10 could be registered under one Maharashtra registration. And you can do centrally for all those branches in Maharashtra. But if you have 5 in Delhi and 3 in Odisha, then 5 in Delhi will have to be registered centrally in Delhi and 3 in Odisha have to be centrally registered in Odisha.
If there is no any branch, our client is situated there.
Sorry?
If there is no branch in some state, but there are some client, he is providing services some other state, from Maharashtra or some other state. So in that state would be taken.
See, there is not a problem in that case because what will happen in that case is that the location of the service provider determines the taxability. So if the customer is, let's say, in Bhubaneswar or the customer is in Calcutta, but he is being rendered from Maharashtra, the place of provision in your case is where the intermediary is located, which is Maharashtra.
Yeah.
So that gets covered in the state of Maharashtra registration.
In that case, it is not necessary.
Currently, the service tax provision is where the services given or provided, they need to be taxed. So, if I am in Maharashtra and providing services in Karnataka, the Karnataka tax rate is applicable to me. Will that be my next question? Will that be applicable to me in GST also?
See, what the law says is, if you read the IGST provision provides a specific rule to determine the place of provision of service for intermediaries. Now, what is the essence of place of provision? The essence of place of provision is that wherever the place of provision is, the tax has to go to that state. So, for example, if there is a hotel which is located in Gurgaon, then it is based on the location of the property. Whosoever may be the customer, the tax would go to the state based on where the property is located, which in this case is Gurgaon. So there will be CGST and SGST of Maharashtra, which is going because the place of provision is there.
Where is the services being generated? You have to apply to that.
Doesn't happen because that's the reality. I mean, I can't give you a different answer because it leads to complexity. But now in case of intermediaries, and I think that's a good provision for you because for intermediaries, the location of the service provider determines the place of provision of service. So customer could be anywhere, but the location is where the service provider is. Where the service provider is, that state will get the benefit of tax. Yeah.
See, GST will be applicable from July. So if I have an old set off, say for the period April to June, will I be able to claim that?
So there are transitional provisions. In most of the cases, the general rule is wherever these credits were eligible for set off in the pre-GST regime, those credits or those closing balances, if you disclose them in the return and if you avail them appropriately, would become the opening balance in the GST regime. So the answer is yes, you would not lose onto the credits in most of the cases.
Sir, presently, trading activities exempted in the service tax. So we are doing the proprietary trade, etc. Is exempted, taking the exemption.
So are you doing what? Trading off?
Trading activity for own services.
Trading off?
Trading activity. If trading owner is doing the trading activity for himself, that is exempted. For in our cases, broker is doing if the proprietary trade on own account. So it is exempted services. So there is to availing the credits of the inputs. So there is a various calculations. 1, 2, 3 is as per the available. Either we go for the for the composited schemes or etc. So what is the in the GST scenario it is a proprietary AGT exempt is there?
See, understand that under GST, every supply becomes taxable. So, what is excluded is, for example, the sale of land, the sale of building, securities, employer-employee relationship, services by an employee to the employer. So what is happening is that there are only certain exclusions from GST. Apart from that, every transaction and every consideration for any supply of both goods and services is subjected to tax. So whether it is manufacturing, whether it is trading, whether it is rendering of some services, everything becomes supply, and the taxable event is based on that supply. So you have to be specifically excluded somewhere or the other to get that benefit. So if the services are rendered in the course of employment, specifically excluded, not taxable. If it is trading of securities, so only the element of trading is not goods or services, but not the brokerage part of that. So sale of land, then again it is with respect to certain conditions that the sale of land has to be only the land, sale of building has to be only the building, the OC should have been received and so on and so forth. So only those specific exclusions will be out, otherwise everything will be subjected to tax. And of course there could be certain items which are removed from the definition per se. So for example, alcohol for human consumption. So there also the condition is human consumption. What happens to alcohol for industrial consumption? Taxable. So you have to basically fit into one of those exclusions to get the benefit. And otherwise everything becomes taxable.
If a ex-company, it is registered under service tax for a single premises. Now,
Ex-company is registered under service tax for a single premise, not for multiple. It doesn't have a centralized registration. Now going forward, ex-company is expanding its business and opening its branches in multiple states. So while converting for GST, whether they'll have to convert first into centralized registration under service tax and then for GST they'll have to apply, or what will be the procedure?
They can have separate registrations for separate states even if they start before 1st of July, so that those separate registrations could then be converted to GST registrations.
Directly into GST they'll be able to register themselves.
That's the best way.
Thank you.
As far as stockbroking is concerned, suppose stockbroker server is situated in Maharashtra and we are providing services across the India.
Where are you located?
Maharashtra. And we are providing services through branches also as well as through franchises also. But all the trades are routed through the Maharashtra. And accordingly we are generating contract from Maharashtra on across the India basis to ultimate clients. Under the GST, it would be construed that we are providing services from Maharashtra, or it would be construed that we are providing services from my branch from where the client's trade is routed. What would be the impact there?
What do you think?
According to us, since server is located in Maharashtra and
Server has no relevance.
contract law,
Is the law talking about server at any place? Server can be in New York also. How does it make a difference?
but as far as service tax is concerned, they were considering these things that
See, understand that. So, last year I went for a golf tournament and I don't know, the coach completely changed my backswing. And after that I was struggling. So I went to my coach and he said, I told him that boss, there's some problem. He said, you have to completely unlearn what you have done. And in 2-3 sessions I was back on track. So the problem is, we are not unlearning what we have learned. And that's the problem. Now you tell me, my dear friend, you have raised very valid question, and I don't want to sound rude, but you tell me, was service provider and service recipient ever defined in service tax law? Who's the service provider and who's the service recipient? Was it ever defined in service tax law? The answer is no. But the GST law defines who the service provider is. The GST law defines who the service receiver is. Under the GST provision, the person who is contractually liable to pay becomes the service receiver. The person who is contractually liable to recover the money becomes the service provider. And that's what we have to look. We have to go to the basics. We don't have to go to where server is. Server is on moon. Will there be a jurisdiction to tax the services rendered on moon? The answer is no. Because what law says, law today says, and there were a lot of issues with respect to all these CRS services by airlines. Servers were located somewhere else. CRS services being rendered by these CRS companies to the foreign airlines. The beneficiary, Indian airline, this foreign airline situated in India is here in India. The benefit goes to India. Nobody was able to fall merchant. Today also I can argue completely opposite to what the decision is. CRS, these are issues. Now, if you see the very basic of law, it has changed, my dear friend. What it is saying is, and for the first time, the service provider and the service recipient has been defined. So, for example, I will give you one classic example. Let's say, today, I go to a dry cleaner and I tell him that please dry clean this jacket for me. I enter into an oral agreement with him. I tell him that boss, यहाँ पे मार्क लगा है, इसको मार्क को ना पूरा ठीक कर देना. इसमें पूरा आयन होना चाहिए, इसमें ये होना चाहिए, उसमें वो होना चाहिए और ये मेरे घर भिजवा देना. That all is okay. And what about the payment? You don't know, my dad is MLA of this area, he will pay. Then he calls him and he says, will you pay? Yes, I will pay, don't worry. Now in this situation, there is no doubt that who the service provider is. Service provider is the dry cleaner. Who the service recipient is? Can you tell me who the service recipient in these cases? Because I am getting the benefit, I am the beneficiary, I am telling him the conditions, I am arguing with him that this is what I want, I am laying down the conditions, and we know for a fact that legally a contract may not be written, it can be an oral contract, but the payment is being made by someone else. Today that's the problem, because I can argue from both sides that who the service provider is and who the service recipient is. So in one of the cases, and I think very valid point you are raising, in one of the matters, identical issue, who is the service provider and who is the service recipient, and I argued for a bank and I won the matter. Now after few months, the exporter came and he said, sir, please argue this for me, it's in Ahmedabad tribunal. I said, boss, I can't, I have some respect. I can't argue this matter because I have argued completely on the other side. How can I do that? I have some face value. He said, no, I will not put it on you. Either you win or lose, it does not make any difference to me, but the best person who would be able to argue this case is you because you know the facts. I said, boss, no, but after whatever, I went and argued that matter. And I was arguing completely on the opposite side that day, and unfortunately, before the order was about to be passed, the learned DR said that, my lord, my friend is very intelligent. Only a couple of months back in Mumbai tribunal, he has completely argued on the other side, and this is what the case law is reported. I was sinking, but I said, my lord, in the interest of justice, if the tribunal has erred on a point of law, and if they were wrong that day, you cannot be wrong today. You have to, and fortunately it clicked him and, mattered. Because there was so much of ambiguity. Service provider and service receiver, pata hi nahi hai kaun hai. I can give you 10 examples. We can argue on both the sides, and that's the quality of lawyers. They can argue on both the sides. Moot court में सिखाया जाता था कि बॉस ये change हो जाएगा कभी भी situation. You have to argue on the other side as well. But that's what the reality is. But fortunately or unfortunately, our role will be limited in the GST regime because most of these issues, whether a supplier's goods or services, I can argue for 20 things today, standing here, that this is goods, and tomorrow I can argue that no, this is services. But the problem is that under the GST regime, all these ambiguities are going off because they have categorically said that what is goods, what is services, works contract is service, rest of service is a service, and so on and so forth. Similarly, in the case of service recipient and the service receiver, they have categorically mentioned that the person who enters into a contract and is obligated to pay for the supplier is a person who's receiving the services. So to answer your question, server may be anywhere. The rules of place and provision, place of provision of services says that in case of intermediary, the location of the service provider is relevant, will determine the place of supply. For that matter, if the contract is between your customer situated in Delhi and you are in Bombay, you may have a branch in Delhi for whatever purposes. But the privity of contract, the payment and so on and so forth will determine who the service provider is. And I think it is a good provision for the sector because it will reduce a lot of burden. Tomorrow the customer may go from Delhi to Bangalore. Will you change or obtain registration in Bangalore? Then he may go to Assam, then he may go to Pondicherry, he may keep on changing his domicile. He is an army, he wants to change his residence after every 3 years. Will you keep on changing your registration after every 3 years for him? It's a beneficial provision. So, answer is, it is simple for us, it is good for us. The only problem which I feel is with respect to a lot of these transactions wherein I am exporting because the person is situated outside of India. And hence, while I would not want to deviate from the main provision, give me that benefit, but with respect to the transactions which are with FIIs, etc. outside of India, wherein the recipient is outside of India and getting money in convertible foreign exchange, I should be given the benefit. That's what my point is. So while I would not want to deviate from there, because see, you can't ask for one benefit which gives a bigger disadvantage to the entire industry. People will kill us, will throw stones tomorrow on us. Boss, kya kara diya, pagal ho gaye. But the exception has to come in such a way so that export transaction becomes beneficial. Or wherever I am earning in convertible foreign exchange becomes a benefit.
Sir, I'm Kamal from Canara Bank Securities.
Sorry, your voice is not very clear, maybe because of the mic. So can you keep a little
My name is Kamal. I am from Canara Bank Securities. Sir.
Sorry?
I am from Canara Bank Securities.
Can you please come in the front and this voice is maybe it is echoing a bit.
Sir, you tried to bring in a lot of points for the last query. I have a small query on that, or can I take it as, because I am a service provider who provides service across India with one office in Mumbai. So, with whatever the reply you have given, can I take it that I can only have a centralized registration in Mumbai? Yes. I don't have any branches across India, but my clients are spread across India. They take away my services. That is one. Supposing for
this is a beneficial provision and you are...
I can take a benefit out of that for centralized registration. So next, supposing for any other marketing purpose only, if I have to install some branches across India, some 40 centers I want to have a branches, which is nothing to do with my disk trading. I have got other activities. For that purpose I am engaging. Whether I have to have a registration across all states if I have a branch in the sense I am having a representative at other centers, whether it is required as per the provisions.
Very good question which you have raised. Again, I think the answer will depend on those basic fundamentals. To the first question, I think you are convinced and you also believe that it's a nice provision. For the second, see what is happening is you are having branches. So any transaction, and whenever there is a branch and there is any service between, so what will happen is that all these branches are of the same entity. They will have a common PAN. But what will happen, because they are in different states, for GST purposes, they will be treated as different entities for GST implications. So there is no doubt about that. But now what will happen is these branches are actually not involved in rendering that main service which you are rendering to your client.
Exactly.
These branches, these branches are doing is maybe going and collecting the check, facilitating whatever, but they are not rendering the main service for your client, which again the privity of contract is between the main head office of whatever office in Bombay and the customer. The customer may be in Delhi or may go to Andaman Nicobar. Now, what will happen is that the branch is rendering some service to the customer. Now, it is very important to understand, and that's why I was telling him that let's stick to the basics. When he renders that service, let's go back to the dry cleaning example. Now, what is happening in that case is only the beneficiary of his act of collecting the check or depositing or whatever, or giving those diaries to them is being done by him. The beneficiary still remains the customer, but the service recipient in that case is you, the head office in Maharashtra. So if there is any consideration that has to be charged between the two of you. Simple.
If my understanding is correct, a small corollary in this regard I want to place. One is that the exchanges itself, BSE and NSE charges transaction charge to the brokers, in the sense to customers. On that also service tax is there. So in the same corollary, they have branches across India, BSE or NSE, but transaction charges is charged to the client through the broker. So they can also have the same standard that service recipient is through us. So the taxes will remain the same across India for the transaction, yes, service tax on the transaction charges.
See, that's why what we are trying to say is that it is very important for all these transactions, and of course, you know, the way these transactions work is there would be some network, there will be some computer, there will be some, you know, systems to take and track, etc., and so on and so forth. But the main service in this case and so basically the service provider and the customer are identified and defined, are both identified and defined at the very word go, and that's why wherever these intermediary aspects or incidental or ancillary things are concerned, that has to be taken separately. So otherwise our life will become very complicated. Yeah. So that logic will apply in all of the cases.
So one more thing is reverse charge for the advocate fees and whether it will be there in this new GST or it will be merged or something else.
See, few lobbies are very strong. So the answer is that, I mean, I don't want to comment on the advocate part of it, but let's say about GTA. What will happen? They will come on the streets and they would not comply also. So few things it is better than kept under the reverse charge mechanism from the tax compliance, tax collection, all perspectives. But I personally feel that a lot of sectors for that matter, even a lot of these professional services like advocates and all, I don't think there is a need for it to be under the reverse charge. For a very simple reason that we don't want our services to be under reverse charge. We actually lose quite a bit of it. Because now under the GST regime, a lot of credits, what happens, so if a lawyer or an advocate is having a rented premise and most of his services are under the reverse charge, there is nothing on the output side. In any case, the tax cost on the transaction remains the same. The person is paying under reverse charge. So I think it should not be under reverse charge. But of course, the services which advocates are rendering to individuals which are B2C, maybe there should be some sort of an exception to that. Because otherwise what will happen is a lot of these civil matters, etc., where individuals are involved, the cost of the service will go really high.
Lastly, it's regarding the, ask about the proprietary trading. There is a concept called proprietary trading. There is a concept called exempted service tax, wherein actually service tax is charged, but its name is exempted. Either that is 1% of the sales side, or if the during a month, if the sales and purchase, then we have to take out. If the sales are more, 1% of sales, or if the purchase is more, 6% of the difference, something of that sort, service tax is being paid as an exempted service tax. That's what a friend wanted to know. Whether such things will be there in GST also, wherein taxations.
If we see the rules so far, that trading benefit and computation of that for trading purposes and computation for that reversal purposes has not been included there in the law. But that's why I feel it is very relevant for us that if that complexity is removed, let it be. But if the effective rate comes down, and that's why, I mean, when he was saying 12%, I was saying that let's start negotiating for 5%. Because even 5%, I think is not a less rate because today in any case I'm paying STT. The STT is being subjected and I'm just asked. So maybe the start point should be to remove all of these complexities which will make our life easy. We don't mind paying 12%, but I think the negotiating point should start from 5%. That we should just go and do a lot of hue and cry that boss, more than anything, more than 5% will be bad for the sector or that. That's the only way. But yes, that specific provision which is there, 1% for trading for those credit perspective, that is not there. Maybe it comes, see, understand also one more thing, a lot of these provisions will come in the rules. Now, while we know for a fact that these rules for tax payments, registration, returns, refunds are all more or less finalized, there are transitional provisions, credit, composition scheme. These have not been finalized so far. So maybe something of that sort gets finalized in the final rules. Thank you so much.